trying and trying and trying and failing and trying and failing is where mental toughness is born. And if you allow yourself as a kid or as an adult to pick up something and don't make a decision right or wrong until you've done it so many times you don't even know you're doing it anymore, until that process happens, you can never develop any level of toughness.
Hi, my name is Evan Herrman, and I'm documenting my journey on becoming the best version of myself while learning how to be an entrepreneur and developing the successful habits that are necessary to get and keep me there. If you want to come alongside of me and make this journey together, we'll be listening and learning from some of the world's greatest mentors in the areas that matter most: faith, family, finances, friendship, fitness, and fun. So join me on the Whole Person Podcast. Today, we have a special guest by the name of Thom Shea. He is a retired Navy SEAL serving our nation for over 23 years. He was awarded the Silver Star, Bronze Star for Valor, and 4 other Valor Awards. He authored the book titled Unbreakable, A Navy SEAL's Way of Life. He is the founder of Adamantine Alliance, a leadership team building and training organization dedicated to rapid, sustainable growth for his clients. Thom conducts training, seminars, and keynote presentations throughout the nation and serves as a strategic advisor for leaders and executives across the globe. Thom, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. How the heck are you?
Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the time.
You bet. Now, Thom, what really caught my eye and why I wanted to connect with you is you know a lot about leadership. You know a lot about being under stress and pressure. And you wrote a book called Unbreakable as a memoir for your children, just in case if you didn't make it home as a Navy SEAL. Give us a story about a time you were serving as a SEAL that greatly impacted your life and kind of why you decided to write a memoir.
Well, in 2009, I was ordered to take my SEAL platoon over to Afghanistan, and it's not a very safe place. And so with that in mind, Stacy, my wife, and I had sat down and talked about writing things to the kids and to the family in case I didn't come home. And so after a 6-month deployment, there ended up being 13 lessons that I put into the book. And one in particular that made a significant difference to me and to my family was about halfway through the deployment, mid-mark, which I think is the most dangerous time in combat, is when you've survived, very tough times, and then you still have, 3 more months to go. We were ordered to go deep into the mountains of Afghanistan, into an area that I knew was going to be very dangerous. And in particular, we landed about, 4 miles from the target. Upon landing, we got rocketed and received fire from the Taliban that were there. And we fought, which I think is an interesting conversation. Most people can walk 4 miles in about an hour. It took us 6 hours to move 4 miles under fire. We get to the target area, and it was not any safer there. We got in a nice firefight there, and we're overwhelmed by the enemy, but we found a way to win, and that was all before dawn. And throughout the day, we were in sustained combat until about maybe an hour before dark, which is where the real story begins. That actually in the book, it's chapter 9. And so what happened is most people don't realize, and what most, I would call it this way, you don't realize in life when you let your guard down, everything falls apart. So we let our guard down. We'd won the battles throughout the day, and we were all about ready to leave and hike out that night. And we let our guard down for about 10 minutes, and we were in the biggest battle of our survival. We were outnumbered 36 to around 12, And I didn't know it at the time, except that right when we got hit, I got rocketed, and I thought I'd been blown up, but I got knocked back into a room. I'm laying on the ground, and I had remembered my wife saying, don't fear dying, it makes you weak, and to fight your way back to us. So I rallied the guys. We ran out of ammo in about 45 minutes, and that is as detailed as I can get without cussing in the storyline. Hopefully that is what you were looking for.
Well, we appreciate your service and everything that you had to do for our freedom and safety, and we're really glad you made it back. And just for our listeners, if you want to buy Thom's book, Unbreakable, A Navy SEAL's Way of Life, you can go to the website, thewholepersonpodcast.com, go to the podcast guest link, click on him, and there'll be a link to his book that you can buy. Thom, in your book, I like the tagline, A Navy SEAL's Way of Life. What can we learn from the examples that Navy SEALs set in our ordinary everyday life?
I think Navy SEALs are ordinary. They just decide to lead a life that's based on what most people don't understand is it's a very basic life. And the premise of it is when you make an agreement or you promise to do something, you keep that promise no matter what. And that's the basis of being a SEAL. And you have to go through Hell Week to learn that lesson. And during that condition that is called Hell Week, you are faced with every obstacle that stops you, that can stop you. You're so cold you can't breathe. You're so tired. You go without sleep. You're being verbally and physically, you're not being hit, but you're pushing yourself physically past the point that most humans have ever encountered. And if you can't honor your promise to stay there throughout all that, you leave. And that, in a nutshell, is the differentiating factor from what I called normal to extraordinary. And everybody has that ability. And what I do right now in my leadership training is teach leaders to do that. And the difference that it makes is extraordinary. And I didn't think it was that powerful. What I find out is that most organizations or leaders don't have that as the basis. So they can't get off the X, and they can't grow, and they can't hire and retain great people because organizationally they aren't structured around keeping promises.
You were talking about how everyone has the ability to not only keep promises, but to essentially have that discipline necessary. And I know early on in my youth, I have quit so many things in my life when things got hard. I was a decent baseball player. Then when I started getting bullied, I quit. I quit karate when I was getting bullied. Mm-hmm. And what's funny now is in a way, it's almost helped me. Because I had to go through this lesson of not quitting. But then what I realized is I got really good at failing and not that great at success. But then when I really started going after success, I was so accustomed to not being good at anything or a lot of things that my own failure didn't bother me as much. And then I just kept going. And somewhere along the way, I had a shift of determination. Mm-hmm. How does a person make that shift of determination for themselves to go from a fear of failure to, you know what, I'm going to keep going regardless of the circumstances. I'm going to keep my promises regardless of my circumstances to reach a desired outcome, because that's not normal.
I think it is normal. I think nobody wants to structure it and take a hard look at what you just described. And in essence, you described honoring your word. What you have to, and what you, like everybody, comes to that point, whether it's being bullied or not being a good enough pitcher to make the team, or you tried for a position, it didn't work the first time. Whatever you face, you have to keep trying. And that element of being human is, I think, the lost art of our society. Back in the day, I don't know what that day would actually be, it was never easy the first time. It was hard to get water. So you had to keep going outside. It was raining, it's cold, you didn't have the right shoes, you had to go retrieve water. And that toughness that was inherent to people is now lost. Everybody now has ease of everything, and they forget to be tough. And really what toughness is iterative. You have to keep doing simple things over and over again until you magically arrive at that place that you wanted to get to. And it's a lost art. And, being cold happens, just like being bullied happens to everybody. And, in your instance, and like most youth, you're going to get bullied. You have to face the bully. Eventually, you have to face the bully, whether you do later in life or you do as a youth. And the moment you face the bully, he goes away, or she goes away, whichever the condition. You may get hit a couple times, but it stopping you from doing the things that matter to you. And it's a long conversation about what you just said, but everybody has that ability, but nobody wants to overcome those simple things that stop them, but they're the most important things to learn. Is you actually have to be tough.
Let's dissect that. How does someone overcome those simple things, in a sense, in order to be tough? Because my next question will go into, as a Navy SEAL, you had to develop mental toughness and discipline. That's something that isn't really developed anymore, like you said, in our culture, because
it's gone. Yep.
It's become so easy. So how, as an individual, do I develop mental toughness and discipline?
Yeah, it's actually simple. First, stop watching TV because they're telling you to do it exactly the wrong way. Imagine it being the opposite. Imagine the truth being you're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to anything. You may have to work 100 days in a row to get a simple thing that was possibly given for free. And I think society has it completely wrong, because it's not good for the human being, or as you know, which I like the title of your podcast, the whole person requires something that it's not learning right now. And it's a simple thing. Imagine starting as a kid, somebody telling you, if you can't do it 100 times, or don't make a decision on if it's good for you or bad for you until you've done it 100 times, like pitching, like catching, like studying. That's a truth. So don't make a decision until you do it 100 times. That process actually teaches you toughness. And nobody's telling anybody that. So until you do things multiple times, don't make a decision about it. Because on the 10th time, you still may not be good at it. And on the 20th, it may even get worse. And on the 50th, people may start criticizing you. Like, Evan, you can't do that. Oh, I haven't done 100 times. I'm not going to decide. Through that process of constant trying and trying and trying and failing and trying and failing is where mental toughness is born. And if you allow yourself as a kid or as an adult to pick up something and don't make a decision right or wrong, until you've done it so many times you don't even know you're doing it anymore. Until that process happens, you can never develop any level of toughness. And that's a truth.
So let's make this a practical situation here then for our audience and myself. If we took 30 minutes or an hour away from our TV binging a night, and we focused that hour on learning a new skill, not only would that skill develop us in a different area, but that skill itself would also develop the mental toughness of challenging ourselves to do something new. So I'm going to give that some thought, because I've had this inner battle with TV for a very long time. Why specifically did you say TV was the first thing that you've got to change?
TV doesn't give you anything. It actually takes it away. And you mentioned what it actually takes away is time. And time is the most important element to a human being. And again, nobody's telling anybody that. We literally spend a lot of our time doing nothing. And TV isn't helpful. And, there's probably no relevant information that comes from TV that's helpful to human beings. And so, there's a process, and we've developed it over the past, I would say, 29 years. I've kind of moved it into the training environment, so to speak, in the past 6 years. And here's what I ask everybody to do. For 21 days, morning and night, if you want to develop a level of toughness that is like depleted uranium, very hard, you'll become a very hard human being, very tough. In the morning, right after you get out of bed, immediately, unless you have to go to the restroom, do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, and 10 squats. And then right before you go to bed, the last thing you do the same thing. If you can do that for 21 days, you'll have a level of skill and a level of health and a level of toughness that puts you in the top 10% of everybody alive. I thought it would be easy, and I think there's around 1,100 people that we've put through that training, and only 78 people have been able to do it because they lack the mental toughness required to accomplish that. And it's not very difficult. But what we've learned from that, and as everybody, if you go through it, you'll learn this: your excuses drive you more than your commitment. And so what we've come up with is most people have an excuse-driven life. They make a promise, and then pretty quickly they excuse themselves from doing it because it hurts, or I don't have support, or they think what they're doing now is stupid, or they literally forget. Those 4 excuses have killed more people's toughness or success than any other thing going. Because genetics don't keep you from doing push-ups.
Right.
Even if you're overweight, even if you've never done it before, figure out a way. You're either going to honor your word or you're going to honor your excuse. So the deal with excuses is that they are what people measure themselves by. And that's tough. That's a tough existence.
Pause.
Yep.
Wow. Keep in mind what you're going to say, but people measure their lives by their own excuses. I've never thought of that, but that is so true. Because anytime I reflected my life on something that I've wanted to do and didn't do it, what becomes my future self then judges myself based off of why I didn't do it, which makes me feel worse as an individual.
And we write books about our excuses.
Yeah. There's healing in what you just said.
Yeah, so imagine you can take that to the nth degree. And we've just come up with those, over 1,000 people have done that part of the training. And those are the top 4 excuses. And what we coined another term called subtle, seductive, and believable. It's believable that, I blew my elbow out, so I'm not going to do the push-ups. I've seen people figure that out. Or, oh, I forgot, which is the number one excuse to being successful, is people forget. They made an agreement. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I've seen multi-million-dollar contracts fall apart because people forgot something. I've seen marriages fall apart because, oh, my wife doesn't support what I do, but you're not doing it. So it unravels itself very quickly, and you can't buy that, but you can learn it, which I thought was a fun phenomenon. If you don't let your excuses define you, but you let your promises define you, life changes rather quickly. It definitely changes in 21 days.
As an entrepreneur, I love what you just said, because so many times in business, it's easy to forget, to let our excuses define us. And when I look at some of the more high-performing people in my industry, I would be in the top 20 to 15% in my industry. When I look at that top 1% where I strive to be, that are doing volume and volume and volume of business, they have systems down so that things aren't forgot.
Mm-hmm.
They have robust toughness. And so we're talking about mental toughness and how it affects every area of our life, and how you were talking about not looking back at yourself as the excuse, but as the promise and fulfilling that promise. There's so much, and the word I keep coming back to is healing in that. Because once you make that mental shift, it changes the way you perceive yourself. And then when you perceive yourself different, you will feel better. When you feel better, you will take better actions. When you take better actions, you will have better results. When you have better results, it goes back to feeling better about yourself, which is self-efficacy, essentially.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting point. When you actually come from what I call honoring your word as a state of being. So you are what you say and you do what you say, which I think is rare. When you come from that position, healing may not be required, because healing is you carrying your past with you, which is what we just said. Another way of what we just said earlier is you carry your excuses with you, and they can constantly excuse you from overcoming everything that you've done. And that's it's not a great place to live. And most actions are predicated on us honoring our excuse, which I didn't think the podcast would go this way, but
let's ride with it.
It's all good. Yep.
Anything else you want to say on that topic?
It would probably circle back around, but yeah.
Would you say mental toughness and discipline are the same thing, or are they different?
Discipline is a systematic or is a system that you put in play to overcome your weaknesses, and everybody has them. So discipline is just a system. It's like wearing a coat. It's going to be cold outside. If you go out without a coat, it's not smart. So the discipline is just a system. Mental toughness, I think, more is a process. It's a process of constantly going into the areas of your weakness and building up a layer of toughness, lack of a better word. So process and system, they're not really the same.
Okay. How does one develop discipline then? Because, what I've realized in my life is that I have a lot of good intentions about things or results that I want. The whole idea of the Whole Person podcast is to be whole in your faith, family, finances, friendship, fitness, and fun. And none of them would I say I'm an exception at, that I'm over the top. But I realize those are areas that are important, and I have excuses in all those areas that I've allowed to limit me. Just the other day, I had this, I need to get back in physical condition. Before my knee injury, so I'm doing better now, but just so you know, back in April, I dislocated my knee and tore a ligament for the third time. And right before then, I was doing really, really great at losing weight, eating healthy. But when that happened, I let it all go. And just
as does everybody.
Right. Well, just this week, I decided, you know what? I can't even do the same stuff right now, even though I am probably 80% healed. I can't even do the same stuff now that I did before. But the reason why I can't do the same stuff before is because even though I have my flexibility back, I don't have my strength back. And I haven't been consistent in wanting to develop that strength because it hurts. And so as of yesterday, I decided that if I want to get back, I have to redevelop that specific leg and muscles to get the strength back so that it can perform even the same tasks it used to, so that I can wrestle with my sons, so that I can play hard and not be a pansy. And I share all this to say, when you're faced with a do I, don't I do this, what tips would you give someone to overcome their weakness in a moment of weakness?
I think I'd have to answer back a step. And you'd asked earlier, it's more most people, I answer it this way. Most people do not have a systematic or learned systematic approach to pretty much anything. Most people are haphazard, which causes a flushing of the toilet of life, so to speak. And go back prior to injury. Without a system, injuries kind of always happen. So like the self-discipline required to run a marathon, ultra marathon, whatever. By the way, if you Google how to run an ultra marathon, Google will tell you the human condition doesn't want to process that as a system. How do you Google how to make $1 million? Google will tell you exactly how to make $1 million. But the human condition doesn't have the discipline required to integrate that system into itself. By the way, anybody can run a marathon, but nobody wants to discipline themselves through the process required to get there. Therein lies a significant problem. So that's the first element that you have to take a systematic approach to success. Most of them have already been solved. Secondly, what you just asked was, how do you overcome a big problem? I blew my knee out, I wrecked my car, broke my arm, whatever the case is. How do you deal with that? The first one is you have to get back into a system quickly. whether it's rehab, whether it's slowly walking again. If your right leg is the one that got disturbed, use your left leg until your right leg is capable. Most people, when they experience pain, they go back to zero. They do nothing. They probably drop their diet. They probably drop everything and get back in front of the TV. So everybody does that. That becomes, it's, you know, like a lot of what you learn in the SEAL teams is you either learn the system or you leave. It's not they're dictatorial to it. They're like, here's the deal. We're going to be doing great things here, and we're all going to be doing it the same way, or we're going to end up killing each other. So learn the system or leave. So inherently, in great organizations, you either learn the system that they know is going to be successful, or you have to leave. And that is always the way to succeed. And then people don't do that. Successful entrepreneurs find a system. Like, how do you find a system if there isn't one? You practice and practice, and you find the first thing that works. So you never neglect that thing. You find another step in the system that will work, and then you now have two things that you process as a system, and you do it every day. And if you find a third and find a fourth, by the way, most systems only have 3 elements to them. They're never complex. And if you can get to the third step, that's a systematic approach, look out, you become lethal. I'll stop there.
No worries. So one of the things that I've noticed in my life recently, I don't know if it's been there long term or if I just finally identified what it is. It's probably been there more long term than what I've realized. But I, at times, will struggle with anxiety over nothing at times. Mm-hmm. When situations happen and life gets hard, what would be some tips that you've learned from your experiences? You've been in much harder situations and life experiences than I can even imagine. Mm-hmm. And you had to be so sober-minded about that when those situations arise that you had to have the ability to operate through that. For people that struggle with anxiety, what tips would you give in order to be mentally sharp?
Wow. Y'all ain't going to like me for this one. I don't remember being anxious. Simply because, like I was just saying, life occurs in motion. If you're not in motion, anxiety comes upon you like a wave. Mm. Most people are anxious because they're not doing what they're supposed to do or what they said they would do. So they're anticipating it, but in the moment of being anxious, you're not in action, because you can't put those in the same hand. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, I can't be anxious. I've never seen anybody anxious while in action. So as you know, as a SEAL, whether you're in combat or not, you're in motion. Somebody shooting at you actually is not an anxious causing event. It's, from a SEAL's point of view, like, oh my God, he just told us where he is. If they're not shooting and you're not moving, it's very anxious. So we learned always to be on the offense. And by being on the offense, not sitting in a defensive position, doing nothing. So SEALs overcome everything by being on the offense. And anxiety rarely comes up. If he shoots and misses, he's going to die. If he shoots and somebody gets hurt, there's something to do about that because you're in motion. And I'd always coin the reason why people are anxious is because they're not in motion. And I would suggest that's probably why you were anxious at that time.
Interesting. I'm going to ponder this for 1 second. So I'm just thinking about the times that I get anxious because they kind of have been habitual. Typically, it's when I'm trying to relax or do nothing is when I feel the most anxious, which is kind of right on with what you're saying. And so for me, I'm taking this mental shift now where when I feel that coming on, I need to find something in my environment to do, to accomplish. Because oftentimes my anxiousness is a byproduct of me not feeling good enough or accomplished enough. And that goes back to some of my mental programming and, quitting things early on in my life. Now that I'm older, I'm much more proactive, but I still carry that baggage of not feeling good enough, which then probably creates that anxiousness as well when I'm sitting still. So I'm actually learning and processing this as I'm talking. So I'm not acting like I have the advice. I'm literally processing this for myself out loud.
Well, think about that. And the people that are listening is the same way. I'm not being righteous about it. It's just years and years of experience of seeing the difference between, especially within this question, people who have anxiety and people who do not. The people who do not have anxiety are rarely resting. And we, like the TV phenomenon, is a lot of resting, which causes a lot of anxiety. By the way, you probably don't need to rest. You probably don't. If by the time you wake up, unless, the house is burning and it's 2:00 in the morning, if you've gotten enough rest, you don't need to rest again until there's nothing left. But people spend an inordinate amount of time doing nothing. And in nothing, all you do is think about all the things that you should be doing, which is anxiety.
Yeah.
Just go do it. It's better to fail than do nothing.
Huh. I love this episode. I'm just letting you know that right now. This might already answer the next question because we've talked a lot about it. But if there's anything else that you want to add to it, feel free. What are some traits of successful people?
I think, oh man, that's a good one. I've been asked this several times. I think I've modified it. The first one is hunger. Hunger for what they're doing. Like hunger from being, if you've ever really been hungry in life, like for food, that type of hunger is essential to be successful. Like you would walk across broken glass to eat. That type of hunger is, I think, essential. The other one I would call wicked smart. Somebody that sees 10 steps ahead, that can articulate what their craft is, can demonstrate their craft. I just coined it as wicked smartness. And maybe the third one would be, it's called humility. I would call it the ability to fail and recover quicker than a blink of an eye. And those three things put in tandem become lethal success metrics.
Out of those three, for our listeners, which one do you feel like you identify best with?
I can fail quicker than anybody and I can recover quicker than anybody.
That would be mine as well.
Yeah.
I've gotten accustomed to failing and picking myself back up.
Actually, I try to fail now. I try to, whatever I'm initially doing, I try to break it to see what the weak links are and then deal a lot with weak links. I don't deal a lot with the strong suits. I deal a lot with my weaknesses.
Interesting. Why is that? Because a lot of leadership gurus would say, don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths.
I think I was just listening to a guy talk about that. And I think it got twisted in the conversation. So recognize what your strengths are and not lie about them. If you're 5'1", you're probably not going to be a pro basketball player. So in light of that, you can't work on something like that, as opposed to maybe I'm a 6'8", basketball player, and my weakness is my left-hand dribble. If I spend a lot of time on my weakness, I get extremely good. Or if I'm a bad free throw shooter, I can work on that weakness, as opposed to never touching that weakness. So in the craft of whatever you're doing, there are going to be weaknesses. Work on those. If you're already a speaker, you probably don't need to work on that. If you're a paid speaker, you probably don't need to work on the craft of speaking. It's those other things that you hate that you probably need to work on within the field of speaking. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. No, completely. A lot of limitations are self-imposed. At least in my life, I've imposed my own limits or believed lies about my limits. How do we break the habit of limiting ourselves?
Well, I think that's good on the back of what we were just talking about. The first thing is to recognize all limits are perceptive or self-imposed. But we believe them to the point we don't think that they're self-imposed. We think they're real. And not constantly, but continuously looking at what limits you and then going towards those things often. And self-imposed limits are usually fear-based. Like if you don't like to, or if you're afraid of heights, go climbing. And by doing that, you break that self-imposed limits or that limit. If you feel like you get tired at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which most people do, go run. Run until that limit falls away. Or go do something extremely hard at the time where you don't want to do it. And that will conquer your self-imposed limits.
I got a question regarding this. I have a self-imposed limit on waking up. And when I say early, I don't mean I wake up late. I want to just wake up 2 to 3 hours earlier. I noticed I got an email from you at 3:13 in the morning the other day. So either you woke up early or you stayed up late. One of the two. How would someone overcome, I don't want to say sleeping in because I don't do that, but not waking up earlier? Because that's something I want to get better at.
Oh, you're going to hate me for this one too. So I may be wrong on this one. The other things, I think I was close to being right. I've seen more successful people that were already successful not be able to wake up once they've attained success. It's my notion that lack of interest causes the lack of desire to wake up. If you go to bed saying tomorrow I'm going to be, gosh, man, I have to call 100 people, or I have to do something that is really of importance to you, you'll find you'll wake up very quickly. So working on your willpower or your interest constantly will diminish your sleeping in.
So instead of saying, hey, when I wake up, I got to go work out, which is not something I want to do.
Yeah, you're not interested in it.
Yeah. So I need to choose something that will motivate me, that I will enjoy to wake up early. So for example, I like editing the podcast. I like spending time working on that. And if I move that to my 3, 4, 5 a.m. slot, I will probably wake up for that compared to trying to force myself out of bed to go work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it has to be something what you call vital, and vital and interest are twins. So, and a way to test it is tomorrow, make sure that you have 10 edits to do. And that's scary. Like, man, if I don't get to it, it ain't going to do it itself. People that wake up early and work out, they're very interested in it. Or they have so many miles to put in. They're like, man, if I don't get up early, I'm never going to get to it. But it's of initial value to them. So whatever your big statement of value is, make it triple down on it on one day. And you'll wake up. You'll wake up at 5, whether you want to or not.
Interesting.
And don't ever set a snooze. It kills your drive.
Right.
The alarm goes off, get out of bed. If you're hitting snooze, you're telling yourself you're not interested.
I put my phone, because my phone is my alarm, in my bathroom so that, well, most mornings I don't have an alarm, but when I do get up extra early, I put it in my bathroom so that it forces me to get up and walk to the bathroom. So let me ask you this. What does your morning routine look like?
After Afghanistan, I've not been able to sleep for more than 5 hours because the desire to live kind of got ingrained into my DNA. And I actually wish I could sleep longer. So my morning routine is I initially get up and I do what I said I would do. Is I get out of bed, right next to the bed. I do push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. So the first few steps away from the bed aren't, oh my gosh, I'm old and tired. I've actually accomplished something immediately. And then I go out and I start writing my second book, or I get to, important emails that I have to get to. And that takes about 45 minutes. And then I go for either a run or I go downstairs and bike, because to me, I think health is a baseline thing that you can't negotiate with. And as a runner, I have to put in miles. And then I come back and shower and get ready for my family to wake up. And I make myself available to them until they leave. And that's my morning routine, unless I'm traveling.
I like to end the show with 4 questions. What's the biggest lie in self-talk you've had or currently struggle with?
The biggest lie, and again, everybody's going to hate me, is to keep telling yourself that you're going to be successful. You're lying to yourself. Not everything's going to work out. Everybody knows that. So stop telling yourself that. That's a big lie. And it kills people because it doesn't work. And that's what a lie is, something that's not true.
I feel like there's more to that we have to go into.
Don't lie to yourself. It's like telling yourself, look in the mirror. So I'd use gross analogies, and don't lie. Just don't lie. So if you're 500 pounds and you look into the mirror and say, wow, you look fit today, it's a lie. As opposed to saying, all right, buddy, I'm going to walk a mile. That ain't a lie. So the two are very different. So if you're going to do positive self-talk, don't look into the mirror and tell yourself a lie. It's like looking at a square and saying that it's round. Hey, You can be round. That doesn't work. So if you're going to be truthful, be truthful.
I don't know if you know who Dr. Shad Helmstetter is. He very much into self-talk and affirmations. And he actually says something very similar as well. He says you can't give yourself positive affirmations if those results don't already exist. You can't consciously look at yourself in the mirror, because you will tell yourself subconsciously you're lying.
Yep.
He says affirmations have to be a subconscious thing, meaning that it's something that you have in the background that you're not paying attention to, because self-talk is a language in of itself, and that you learn to it by hearing it around you without actually having to focus on it. So that's really great advice.
Yeah, the lies are so rampant because people misunderstood what positive affirmations were supposed to be. But an affirmation is not supposed to be positive or negative. It's supposed to be what it is. Look at something and call it what it is, and you'll have all kinds of a different lifestyle. Don't look at something and say it should be something else. That's a lie. Affirmation is, hey, that's round. Now I can do all kinds of things with a round thing. It's a weird way to look at it, but I'm not a huge proponent of positive self-talk.
Okay. What brings you peace?
Action.
What's the best decision you've ever made?
Staying alive.
There's more to that.
The whole system wanted to kill me, so I decided to stay alive.
I would have never expected that as an answer from anyone, but in your situation, that makes a lot of sense. That you've made that's a great answer. Last question for you. How can I add value to you?
By being the best version of you possible. I think that's the greatest contribution anybody could be to anybody else.
Well, Thom, thank you so much for coming on our show today. It was full of wisdom, knowledge. Is there anything before we go that you want to share from your book, or what you're doing now? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, I'm now negotiating for the second book to be released, and don't know what the title is, because the title of the first book was called Spartan Woman, and it didn't make it past the edit. You can reach out to us. My website is thomshea.com, THOMSHEA.com. And we're on LinkedIn under the same name. And we respond because that's what we do. So, and I'm very eager to, like you, make a difference in people's lives.
Awesome. Well, Thom, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Evan.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you would, I'd greatly appreciate you subscribing, as well as rating and even leaving us an objective review. It helps us with our ratings and spreading the message of the Whole Person podcast. And now, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Take care, and God bless.